The 2020 NFL draft class is 4 years into their careers, and some players from this class have not only made a significant impact with the franchise that selected them, but have signed a second contract with the franchise that selected them. We of course know guys from this class like Joe Burrow, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, and Jordan Love, but all four of these players were first-round picks and expected to contribute for their franchise. Jordan Love took a little bit of time to contribute because of how unique his situation was, but it now looks like the Packers have their franchise quarterback for the next several years. But not every big-name player from this class was a first-round pick like these four guys were, and in fact, some players were draft steals. We did a video like this for the 2021 draft class a few weeks ago that will be linked at the end if you're interested in watching, and a lot of comments from that video were viewers commenting how they wanted more of these types of videos from other draft classes. Well, your wish is my command, and without further ado, here are some of the biggest draft steals from the 2020 NFL Draft 4 years later. We are starting today's video with Steelers pass rusher Alex Highsmith. Alex was a late third-round pick back in 2020 out of the University of Charlotte, and this was a classic developmental pick that has been brought along the right way. Highsmith was a role player in his rookie year as he played in just 43% of the defensive snaps and started 5 games. He started 16 games in 2021 and has started 17 games in each of the last 2 seasons. He had a career-high 14.5 sacks in 2022 and 5 forced fumbles, which, believe it or not, was tied for leading the league with then Eagles pass rusher Haason Reddick. Despite Highsmith having 7 sacks in 2023 compared to the 14.5 he had in 2022, and only 2 forced fumbles to the 5 he had in 2022 as well for that matter, Alex still had a very good year, and I couldn't agree more with Steelers fans that he is one of the most underrated players in all of football. He can win in any way from a pass rushing standpoint, and in 2023, he had a pass rush win rate of 18%, which was technically higher than his teammate TJ Watt's win rate of 16.9%. That of course doesn't include double teams and everything in that nature. TJ is without a doubt one of the best players in all of football, and he is a big reason as to why Alex is one of the more underrated players in the NFL, but what I want to be clear with Highsmith is he is not a product of TJ Watt. He is not just TJ's Robin that disappears when TJ's out. In the first 9 games of the 2022 season, which TJ missed most of due to a pec injury sustained in the opener against the Bengals, there was a period in time where Highsmith was leading the NFL in sacks even without TJ. He finished the 2023 season with a career high in pressures with 69, and overall it was a very nice year for him. The 69 pressures were more than the 55 he had in 2022 despite the decrease in sacks. Between Highsmith, TJ, Cam Hayward, and a young interior player the Steelers have on the rise in Keanu Benton, I really like this unit a lot and think it is one of the best in all of football. Given TJ is one of the best players in not just the AFC North but all of the NFL, he of course is going to receive a lot of attention, but make no mistake about it, Alex Highsmith is a damn good player, and there was a reason the Steelers gave him a 4-year, $68 million contract extension. Next up is Vikings defensive player Josh Metellus. The reason we phrase this as defensive player instead of a safety or a DB is because if you are a Vikings fan or watch the Vikings play in 2023, then you know Josh Metellus lines up all over the field. One of the more memorable things during the back half of the Vikings 2023 season, in what was a very forgettable final few games, was the fans' support of trying to get Josh Metellus to the Pro Bowl and using a graphic along with it. The graphic is kind of hilarious in itself because of how many positions he played during the 2023 season, and out of the 1,000 plus snaps he played during the 23 season, PFF had him playing over 300 at slot, over 300 in the box, over 200 along the defensive line, 55 lined up at free safety, and 29 at outside corner, and they even had him log a snap over the B-gap too. Metellus is a very unique player, and like the Steelers have with Alex Highsmith, this is a guy the Vikings Vikings have slowly brought along over the first 4 years of his career. He played 70 total defensive snaps over the first 2 years of his career before starting 3 games in 2022, then starting all 17 games in 2023. Josh has had 3 different defensive coaches to learn under in his 4 years, with Mike Zimmer being the man in charge in 20 and 21, then Ed Donatel in 22, and of course Brian Flores in 2023. He was a late 6th round pick back in 2020, and even if Josh's calling card was a special teams player for the rest of his career, that's well worth a late 6th round pick. Great special teams players are incredibly valuable to a franchise, but Josh was all over the field in 2023 as he had over 110 tackles, 10 quarterback hits, 7 tackles for a loss, 4 forced fumbles, and even had a big interception against the Packers when they played in Lambeau this year. He signed a 2-year extension right before the 23 season started, and if he plays anywhere close to the level he did in 2023 this year, then he will soon be compensated in a big way. He is a true Swiss Army knife in the Vikings defense, and I would argue with Josh, like we said with Alex, that he is one of the more underappreciated players in football. The Vikings offense is very fun to discuss and project with all of the weapons they have, but if you watch their defense in 2024, it's hard to miss Josh Metellus, because it's not an exaggeration to say, he is all over the football field. This may be a surprising one considering where he was drafted, but it's Jalen Hurts of the Eagles. Jalen was drafted with the 53rd overall pick, and this pick was a shock to everyone when it was made. Were the Eagles giving up on Carson Wentz? Was this their future plan? Why would they spend a top 60 pick on a backup if their intention wasn't to play him? There were all sorts of questions like this at the time, and this was after a year in which Carson Wentz threw 27 touchdowns to 7 interceptions, and at times during the 2019 season showed flashes of the player he was during 2017. But the wheels came off for Carson in 2020, and the selection of Hurts more than proved to be worth it. Jalen played sparingly during the 2020 season as he threw 6 touchdowns to 4 interceptions during his rookie year, and threw 16 touchdowns to 9 interceptions in year 2 before the Eagles got bounced in the wildcard round in Tampa. But 2022 was the year everything came together for Jalen and the Birds, as he would go on to finish second in MVP voting as the Eagles would soar to a 14-3 record and the number 1 seed in the NFC. Hurts has also ran for 38 touchdowns over the last 3 years, due in large part to the tush push, and the Eagles rewarded Jalen with a 5-year, $255 million contract extension in April of 2023. For how bad the Eagles whiffed on their first-round pick in 2020, Jalen Reagor, Howie more than hit a grand slam with their second-round pick in 2020, and it would be very interesting to see where the Eagles would be today had they made a commitment to Carson Wentz back in 2020 and never selected Jalen Hurts. I know pick 53 may seem a little high for a draft steal, but second-round quarterbacks usually aren't great. Drew Brees, of course, is an exception from back in 2001, but some second-round quarterbacks in the past 10 years include Christian Hackenberg, DeShone Kizer, Drew Lock, Kyle Trask, and most recently Will Levis. We will soon find out whether Will Levis is the Titans franchise quarterback, but needless to say, the others mentioned were not their team's long-term guy. Succeeding as a second-round quarterback is rare, and drafting Jalen Hurts may have saved Howie Roseman's job. Down I-95 to Baltimore we go to discuss Justin Madubuike. Justin was taken early in the 3rd round out of Texas A&M, and this was a classic case of a good franchise having a plan for a player that they intend to play for them for a long time. Credit to Justin in a big way, as I don't think the Ravens ever thought in their wildest imagination that he would have a 13-sack season and be named a second-team All-Pro, but what they got from him in 2022 was completely reasonable. In 2022, Justin had 5.5 sacks from the interior and had over 30 pressures, and tacked on 9 quarterback hits and 8 tackles for a loss. He started 16 games in 2022, and signing him to a 2- or 3-year extension and not having to worry about the position for a few years would be a solid 3rd-round pick regardless of position. The Ravens had a pretty good 2020 draft, all things considered, as their first 3 picks were Patrick Queen, J.K. Dobbins, and Madubuike. They also received contributions from fellow third-rounders Devin Duvernay and Malik Harrison, who recently signed a one-year extension to stay in Baltimore. Malik Harrison, that is. The sad reality of the NFL draft is if your favorite team walks out of each class with 2 starters, then that is generally considered a successful draft class. Baltimore had that in Justin and Queen, and technically had an All-Pro in Devin Duvernay as a returner, who is now a Jag. But Justin's progression over the past few years has been fun to watch, and he is the interior defensive lineman I think of when I think of how these guys progress. His pre-draft weight was around 285, and according to Pro Football Reference, he is now up to 305, and it's a bit different along the interior now that he's a 27-year-old man throwing his weight around, instead of a 23-year-old rookie like he was back in 2020. Guys get stronger, and there was a reason Justin's pressures doubled from 32 to 64 between 2022 and 2023. All the work he had been putting in caught up to him, and he became one of the bigger draft steals, no jokes intended on the size there, from the 2020 NFL Draft. Now, back up I-95 to discuss the big fella along the Patriots' offensive line, and that's O-lineman Mike Onwenu. Onwenu has came in from day one and played not just okay, but at a high level, and that's a big credit to the player he is, and how he's developed over the past 4 years. He spent most of his time on the right side of the offensive line, but worked in at left guard in 2020 and 2021. He started all 17 games at right guard during the 2022 season and played 15 games in 2023, with split time between right tackle and right guard. Obviously, the Patriots haven't had a lot of success in the post-Tom Brady era, and they've been very lackluster at times offensively in the post-Tom Brady era, but it's a shame Big Mike's accomplishments aren't as discussed by the national media as they should be. The Patriots signed him to a 3-year, $57 million deal this offseason, and good for Mike to get the bag and to not have to worry about finances again, but I also thought this was a great deal for New England too with what Onwenu brings to the table. For a statistical reference, he was credited with allowing a single sack on 634 pass blocking snaps in 2022 at the right guard position, and also played a big part in Ramondre Stevenson rushing for over 1,000 yards that year. Onwenu was drafted in the 6th round of the 2020 draft, and when you think about it, I would have to say he is probably the biggest 6th round steal the Patriots have had in franchise history, and I don't think there would be a close second. Safety Geno Stone was a 7th round pick by the Ravens who had a career year in 2023 as he had 7 interceptions, which was good for second in the league in his first true year starting. He started some during the 2022 season, but when he was called on in the 2023 season, he more than made his mark and cashed in with a 2-year, $14 million contract with the Bengals this offseason. We all know about Trayvon Diggs and his 11 interception season back in 2021, as Diggs was a player who slipped in the draft and made a lot of teams pay in the process. I was surprised he fell as far as he did back in 2020, but Dallas had a great first 2 rounds as they used their first 2 picks on Lamb and Trayvon Diggs. There was also a pretty good corner drafted by the Chiefs named L'Jarius Sneed in the 4th round of the 2020 draft, who came from Louisiana Tech, and he had a good 4-year run in Kansas City. He finished his time there as a 2-time champion, and he pissed off a lot of receivers in the process. Sneed was traded to the Titans this offseason. Now, I have some big news, and I am starting a podcast that already has a few episodes out and is linked in the description. If you like the content here, you will love it there, and I hope you guys subscribe and leave a 5-star rating, and there will be a lot of great content moving forward. I hope you enjoyed, and until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.